Hi, Allie. You're my lone viewer. Hi, Teresa. All right, we've got some people joining. This is my first time I've ever gone live, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Again, I haven't done this before, so I just want to make sure it's working. Hello, the house. Hi, Katie. Yes, I'm trying this for the first time. This is my first ever live. Thanks for joining. Hi, guys. So I figured I get a lot of questions after I post my videos. Obviously, I love reading everyone's comments, but I figured a live forum might be an interesting way for us to talk about the episode, talk about the preview for the finale, talk about Outlander. So, hi, everyone. So I figured this would be a good jumping off point for anyone who might have some questions. I also, as a disclaimer, when I'm making my review videos, thank you, Barbara. When I'm making my review videos, it takes me hours to pull together all of the information because I obviously want to make sure that it's correct. So I have my notes next to me here. So I can also go through kind of my notes that I took as I watched the episode with you guys, if that's of interest as well. I'm hoping that Jamie and William's relationship develops. You are in luck because it does, and it will in the finale, based on some of the preview shots we saw. Can you touch more on the painting at the beginning of the episode? Was that in the books? No. That was, I think, a brilliant plot device by the showrunners and writers. And I mentioned this in my review video, but it's a real painting that you can go see in New York City. And the way that they kind of loop it into the books, I would argue, is that the painting is about a woman named Molly Pitcher, and Claire in the books, and I also talked about this in a past review video, Claire in the books remembers when they arrive at Monmouth that Bree as a child had a coloring book that was about the Revolution. And one of the pages was Molly Pitcher and this particular battle. And she recognizes that and has that memory of Bree as a child and her coloring that with Frank, and is able to kind of place herself in the history because of that reference. So I really like that they included this. Another liberty that they took was having, when you zoom out from the painting, that it's presumed to be her and Frank standing at the museum looking at the painting, which is just crazy to think about. Frank in the books is a lot more present in this particular storyline. I think I can understand, I should say, why the showrunners are choosing probably to forego his storyline, because it's a lot, and to wrap it up in a season 8, especially when they were writing season 7 and didn't know if they were going to have a season 8, would be very tricky. So them kind of omitting it makes sense to me. But if you haven't read the books, there's so much that happens with Frank that's just fascinating to me. So I'm glad that they did their little tip of their cap to him in this episode. And also when we see Brianna in the library opening one of his books that he wrote, that's another great mention of him, even though we're not going to get the complete storyline of Frank. But yeah, this I thought was brilliant. Let me see if there's some other questions in here. Would Claire or Bree confront Captain Richardson? I would love if they showed that too. Shady man that he is. Thanks so much, Emma. Let's see here. You're welcome, everyone. I'm so glad that my videos are helpful for you. That makes me feel really good. And hopefully it encourages you to read the books. Tobias saying he'll be back in season 8, thank God. I think once everybody who has been on the show probably heard that that was going to be the final hurrah, there's a lot of incentive to join in, so I'm glad that that is the case. Why is there a 2-week break for the final episode? So this is something pretty typical with streaming services because they want all of us who love Outlander to prolong our subscriptions for as long as possible. They're also kind of piggybacking the end of Outlander with the start of Sam Heughan's other show that he did with Starz. So I think they're just trying to stretch out the timing as much as possible so that we all keep our Starz subscriptions and hopefully keep it again when Sam's new show airs. So definitely a strategic choice. You could do a podcast. I have been told that many times. It's definitely of interest to me. I have also been commenting back to some people who are asking me to cover the whole show from season 1 all the way up to where we are. I think that's something I've always wanted to do. It just takes me a very long time to make my videos, so I just have to make sure I can kind of fit that into my schedule. I own my own business, so I have a lot going on, but I really would love to do that. I think that would be very fun. Okay. What's the new show? It's got the word neighbors in it. This is bad. I don't remember the full name. Is the next episode the finale? Yes, it is, for season 7. I read that Molly Pitcher was named Mary Hayes in real life. That is true. That is true. She carried pitchers of water out onto the battlefield for the men. In the real history of this battle, it takes place in the middle of July or at the beginning of July, and it was very hot out that day, and Claire remembers that was kind of the tale around her, is that she was very heroic. She tended to the men, cared for them, and then when one of the cannon, the men that armed the cannon, which was her husband, is injured, she actually manned the cannon for him. So she was definitely a revered woman of history. Curious why or how they'll end the show. We don't even have the last book yet. Yes, this is something that a lot of people have been talking about within my comments. Basically, it's been decided, I believe, between Diana and the showrunners that she told them how she'd like to end the show, and they are kind of going to take liberties with the ending because they're not going to wait around, obviously, for her to finish book 10. It takes her years to write these books. I mean, they're very thick, and she puts a lot of research into them. So my understanding is that given they thought season 7 might be the end of Outlander, and they crammed so much into it, I don't know how much they're going to include in season 8 that is pulled directly from the books. And certainly the ending they're going to take liberties with and kind of wrap it up in the way that they see fit. So as much as I'd love to predict what will happen in season 8, I do think that there's going to be a lot of deviations from the original text, just because they kind of have to at this point. What was the part about Jamie talking about his mother in the coffin in the books? Jamie, I actually went and looked for that. Jamie talking about his mother in the books. Yes, I believe he does. I also know that a lot of strategy from Starz is that they're trying to remind us that they're filming Blood of My Blood. So I do think that there was a lot of strategic placement of his parents in this second half of the season so that they're kind of front of mind again, but they are mentioned in the books. Also, I found when I was doing my research for this that Ellen's middle name is actually Katrina, which I think is kind of funny because obviously Katrina plays Claire. But Jamie does talk about Claire's hair graying and how that seeing her growing old makes him happy. That is from the books. Hi, Ivy. Let's see. Sorry, I have to scroll back and see here. What kind of business? I am an interior designer. I have my own interior design company. Thanks so much for asking. Sam can only be Jamie. That is correct. Can you talk more about the new series that's coming? Are there books that it's based on? No. Actually, I'm excited because Diana has previously said that she had no interest in writing about Claire's parents. So we really know nothing about them. So I think that the show is the first time that we're really going to get any information about her parents, besides, how they died. I would have never realized Richardson is Callahan without your videos. Thank you. You're welcome. I don't think a lot of people would. It was very subtle. Couple Next Door. Yes, that is the name of Sam's new show. Molly Pitcher is a name given to the woman who performed that job. Didn't know that. Thank you for that tidbit. Do I know how long the final episode is? I don't know technically, but I would assume it's slightly longer than an hour. That's usually how they play it with the finales. I haven't read the books in a long time, so your comparisons are so helpful. Thank you. I'm glad. That's always the goal. Will the finale be in 2025? I don't think they've actually announced when technically they're going to do. I assume you mean season 8. I don't think they've technically announced that. But given the typical turnaround time for editing, I would assume it's probably going to be in 2026, just based on the history. Thank you, Daphne. Didn't Jamie call in Dougal before the battle in the show? Or was that some other time? He did that in, I want to say, season 5. In the books, though, before this battle, we're kind of in Jamie's POV, and he is thinking about his dead protecting him, and he has a thought about Ian Moore has to be given to young Ian and protect young Ian. And as he's getting very nervous about being responsible for these 300 men that he doesn't personally know that well, he feels a hand on his shoulder and thanks his father. So that I thought was a nice little touch that he does in the books. They didn't include that in the show, obviously, but it was really, really a nice scene in the books. I started to rewatch from the first season because of your explanations. Awesome, Barbara. I have rewatched the show a sickening amount of times. And I'm sure when we go into Outlander again, I will do it all over again. On her site, she says it takes about 5 years on average per book. Yeah, I totally believe that. They're so informative. She definitely does her research. Athena, I do hope you read the books. I think that Claire will be better by the end of the season? Yes, I do. I don't know how they're gonna kind of tell us about the timeline, but when William approaches Jamie for help, at that point Claire is up and functioning. She's not fully recovered, but she's recovered by that point. So I don't know how much time will pass over the course of the finale. Missa, I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question, but he doesn't specifically call out Google, or Dougal, not Google, that I recall, and I read that scene semi-recently. He just thinks of his kin that are gone, that are protecting him, and then he only calls out his father. Yes, there is a Hewin in the books named after Sam. I saw that too. I don't think we're going to get that scene because it involves young Ian, and they've kind of removed a lot of his. But yes, I read that semi-recently again as well. I'm not moved by the Revolution storyline. Claire's British, so why so gung-ho? Mainly because her daughter is born here. So the world that Bree grows up into, she wants to make sure that if she can play a part in that history and help shape the country that her daughter is a citizen of. Jamie feels very strongly about that, and I think that Claire does too. Because their daughter, whether she stays in the past or in the future, is an American citizen. Oh, Sally, don't be anxious for the finale. It'll be great. Yes, thank you, Ivy, for the clarification as well. Do we think we'll get an Henri Christian storyline next season? I really don't know. I think as much as I would like for them to, we didn't get a lot of Marcelly and Fergus this season, so if they're included in next season, there's going to be a lot that they have to kind of cull from and decide what they want to include. So I don't know if we will get that. It would break my heart if we did. It's so sad. Is Sam's Neighbors a series or a movie? It's a series, a TV series. Hi, Misty. Yeah, the part with Rollo is very sad, but I'm glad that that's the way he goes out. Does Bree have any more children? Yes. Yes. Did Frank always know Claire could time travel? He didn't believe it for a very long time. I think in part, and this is my interpretation, denial. He's a very literal person. I also think that obviously when she was gone and came back, it would be easy for him to assume that mentally she was going through something that she would one day get over. But he was a historian, and as he started poking around, I think he figured out quite quickly that there was some truth to what she said. And then obviously this part wasn't included in the show, but he finds out information about Bree that kind of reiterates to him that she is likely a time traveler too, and takes precautions for that reason. So I think, yes, he eventually believes it. Did he always know? She was pretty upfront with him when she returned, but he didn't want to believe it at first, or didn't believe it at first, and then eventually, yes. Do you normally go live? No, this is my first ever live, so thanks everyone. We got 82 people here. That's crazy. That amount of time doesn't exist. That's correct, Barb. Good evening to you. Will Lord John and Jamie mend their relationship? Yes, in their way. Lord John goes through it in the books. They actually, in the books too, they reunite shortly after Claire is injured. He goes to visit Claire, and that scene I found very funny because the tensions are still very high, and Claire is kind of the mediator between them, and has to kind of say to both of them, like, John didn't come here to harass you or woo me away, and you didn't kill him the first time you were together, so can we just be cordial here, and you're here to visit me, is basically Claire's reaction, which I thought was funny. Let's see, what do you think they will do at the end of the series? I would love if they left it open for a movie. I think that would be wise, because if they ever did want to take Diana's book 10 up and portray it, I mean, her books are so dense, I don't know if a movie would really cover a whole book, but they could at least, if she, well, let's think of it this way. I think for most people who are fans of Outlander, the biggest payoff that they want to see through before the show ends is Jamie's ghost, and I don't think that we're going to get a satisfying ending until Diana writes it. So I don't know if the showrunners are going to choose to end the show with that question left unanswered or not. And if they do, then that obviously opens up the movie as the medium in which they could conclude that story. But there's so much more that goes into it, so I really can't say. Part of me thinks that they will just give us a satisfying ending with everyone at the Ridge, but I really can't say. It's a great question. Imagine a movie is right. I think, like H.M. Lasso is saying, Downton Abbey style, I think that would be great. All flaws considered, who's my favorite character? The first one that popped into my head was Lord John. But I think I have favorites for all different reasons. And I will say I really didn't like William in the books, and I'm loving him in the show because I think Charles is doing a great job. So you have to also take that as two different things. Who do I love most in the books versus in the show? Because they are portrayed quite differently. Will Diana release final book before the season finale? No, I really, really don't think so. She also, if any of you are interested or are unaware, has a Facebook page where quite often she will post little snippets from the book she's writing, from book 10. She does it fairly often, actually, and they're really interesting and do kind of clue you in slightly as to what she's going to be writing about and what they're up to. So if you're interested, I would highly recommend you go follow her on there. Have I read the Lord John novellas? Yes, multiple times. They follow a few different ones. They start around the time of season 3, the like Jamaica kind of storyline, slightly before then, but they kind of line up with Voyager, the book. And then we also have The Scottish Prisoner, which is it's technically its own book, less so a novella, and that is in and around the time that Janie is at Ardsmuir. That's one of my favorites, if not my favorite Lord John novella. Highly recommend you read them. I think that's a big reason why Lord John is probably my favorite character, is because of his novellas, and I would love if one day he got a spin-off series. I think that would be wonderful. Patty, you can't stand William in the series? Oh no. How come? Thoughts on difference in chemistry between Jamie and Claire? I'm probably too critical, admittedly, because I know that the actors they're producers now, and they both feel like Diana wrote the attraction and chemistry and the physicality between Jamie and Claire at their age in a way that they didn't think was necessarily how it should be portrayed or how they felt it should be portrayed. So I think they are kind of pulling back slightly on how it's depicted in the books. So I think that's a purposeful change, that they're not like jumping each other's bones all the time. But in the books, that's not the case. So I think it's hard for me to not be critical in that way. I try not to be, but I know it's something that's their opinion that they're interjecting into the writing as producers now, versus the books. It's definitely not portrayed that way. They are like season 1 all the way through. Nikki, yes, she did just post one the other day, and I read it and it was great. I liked Roger and Bree's storyline in the books. Me too. I liked Roger and Bree's storyline in the books. Me too. I was slightly bummed that they changed it for the show, but all the more reason to read the books, I'd say. Let's see. Thanks everyone for your comments. This is so fun. I like Roger this season, but Bree annoys me. I kind of go back and forth with them. Like one season I can't stand one of them, and then the next season it's the opposite. Do you prefer reading her books physical, Kindle, or audio? I've done all of that. When I first read them, I did the audiobooks because I was at work and I would be working and listening to them. And the narrator is wonderful. So I found it really engaging listening to the narrator, especially when there's so many characters and she's able to differentiate them all with her various accents that she uses. I currently, when I'm doing my review videos, I use Kindle because I can quick search keywords that I remember and try and find the scenes that I'm thinking of quickly, so I'm not, going through a million pages looking for it. But I really think if you're trying to read them, it's probably easiest and less daunting to start with the Kindle or the audio because you're not looking at the size of the book, which is quite large. Let's see, I need... Bria's always been awful. I like her in the books. He needs a show. I agree. I know they were talking about doing a Lord John spin-off series for a while, and I don't think it had enough interest for stars to kind of go through with it. But I also think that at the time, Lord John, he had screen time, but not enough for people to really feel probably as invested in him as they would need to be if they were going to do the spin-off series. But if you've read his novellas and you know all the different scenarios that he would be able to get up to in the spin-off series, I think it would be great. It would be great TV. William is so much better in the show than the books. I agree. Yeah, Outlander should just go on forever and ever and ever. I agree. Yeah, the reader, Davina Porter, she does have a lot of voices. And she talks kind of slow. So I usually have to increase the speed to like 2 times or 3 times the speed because she does talk quite slowly. But they are amazing. Thank you, Lorena. What do you think of the season 2 stone scene and the reunion scene? I was hoping for more emotion. Which reunion scene? Are you talking about when Jamie shows up at 17 Chestnut Street and comes back from the dead? They didn't give Lord John enough screen time. Also, the Starz exec wanted to focus on the strong women shows. I believe that. But yeah, I think at the time when they announced it, I was surprised that they were trying to push for a Lord John series that early on when he wasn't really like a fan favorite yet. I think he's definitely become more of one over time. And I also think David Barry, he really wanted the series. I think he would still love for a series to be made. I think he's a really wonderful Lord John. He brings a lot to the character that captures how he is in the books, but also gives him, I think, a little bit more soul, because Lord John in the books, I would argue we don't get a lot. We do, but not as much as like Jamie and Claire, a true window into his emotions. He's not a very emotional man. In that I think he tries to put on a front a lot, so we don't get that like clear window into his emotions. But I think David Barry is so emotive that he almost makes up for that in a very intriguing way that the books don't really provide. And he also captures his humor quite well. Let me see here. Have you read all the novellas? Yes, I have. Anything that they've released for Outlander, I have read. What do you predict our cliffhanger to be in 2 weeks? I would love, and I've actually had a number of people comment this in my review videos for last episode. I would love if the season ended with Hello the House, and Bree and Roger and the kids showing up at Fraser's Ridge. But I really don't know how much they're gonna squeeze into this finale. Especially since at one point it was written to be the finale of the entire show. So I don't know what they scrapped and are saving and what they want to keep as the cliffhanger for the finale of the season. Wouldn't it be awesome if they all did the last audiobook, meaning the actors? I do think Davina Porter told Diana, and I could be wrong about this, but I do think she told her that she would come out of retirement to do the book. Book 10. Print shop, especially pictures of Bree. Okay, I think this is referring to an earlier question about what I thought about the emotions, how emotional they were. Sam, and I hate to be critical of actors because their job is so hard, but there are some scenes that I think he nails the emotion, and there are others where, not that it's not emotional enough, but I have read how emotional Jamie was in the books, and I know that Katrina and Sam both have not read the books, so sometimes for me, I feel like wherever it's lacking, it might just be because they don't have the added context of how it was written in the books first, and they're just reading the scripts. but that is totally my opinion. Lord John and his eye chronicles make me laugh. I love him. Truer words have not been spoken. I liked William, Myrta, and Ian all better in the books than the series. I liked Book Bree better. I would agree with that, actually. I think Myrta, they really let, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the actor's name. This is so bad. But they let him infuse a lot of himself into the character. And they also wrote more of him in on purpose because he did such a great job portraying him. So I definitely liked Myrta better. And Ian Moore, same thing. Stephen Cree did a great job with that character. I really liked his portrayal of him. This live is great. Please do it again. This has been fun, guys. Thank you so much. This is not as intimidating as I thought for my first live. We'll definitely do it again. Book Ian is way better, in my opinion. Young Ian or old Ian? Let's see. Oh gosh, there's so many comments in here. Thanks, guys. Whoop. Does Ian ever see his Mohawk son again? Part of me says yes, but I can't remember. I think when they go back to Fraser's Ridge, that does happen. I'm almost positive. I haven't yet read the books yet, but I miss Marcelly and Fergus. They will be back, yes. I miss them a lot too. I think they are two of my favorite characters, one of my favorite couples. There was a lot in this season that they were present for in the books, and also some separate storylines that they were involved in that the show did not include. I've mentioned this a few times that it was largely due to the actors not being available. So they had to write them out, but they did shoot for season 8, so they will be back, definitely. Also, Germain, he's involved in a lot of what happened in this season, and they wrote him out too. So hopefully they give him the screen time he deserves next season. Do you have any videos as to your theory on Jamie's ghost? No, I don't have any videos made, but I do have some theories. So that is a video I certainly will make. I also think that's a very long form explanation that I have. So that goes back to the possibility of a podcast or a longer form video over on my YouTube channel that I just started. I'm trying to move over all of my TikTok videos to there so that if TikTok does get deleted, I at least have copies of everything I've made already over there. Yes, I hope it's Hello the House, but that would be a lot. Yes, it would be. How many episodes do we have left? 1 left for season 7, and then we get a whole season 8. Have they said there will be a new season? Yes, there will be season 8. I tried to do the audio version and I just couldn't. The voice isn't right. Fair. That's kind of the trade-off with audiobooks, is that sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, I will start a book and I just can't get behind the narrator's voice. So totally fair. I feel like the last episode brought back that original emotion and anger that we needed. 100%. This episode was a perfect example of why we like Outlander. It had the high stakes. It had the undying love between our two favorite characters. It had family at the core, sacrifice. Yeah, it was really beautifully done. They haven't read them at all. I remember this comment is about Katrina and Sam not reading the books. I remember they did an interview on a panel one time and said that they read the first one when they were cast, and then they're just so dense and thick that they stopped reading them. And then Sam had made a comment saying that it makes him feel like he's more immersed in the character when he's going through these things with him at the same time and not knowing what he's gonna have to deal with ahead of time, which I think is fair for an actor to do. Let's see. Where do people use the audio for the book from, I would love to use it as I follow the physical book. I use Libby, the Libby app, because it's free and it supports my library. But I know if you pay for Spotify, you can also get audiobooks now. So I use that too sometimes. Christy, I'm glad you're here. I don't have a lot of people in my life to talk about Outlander with either, so I'm happy that you all are here. Duncan LaCroix. Yes, that is his name. Thank you. YouTube channel name. It's K Let's Talk. Same as my TikTok name. It is in my bio. Let's see here. Ian's sun comes slow and red. Yes, that is right. That is right. Thank you for refreshing my memory. Let's see. Oh, someone said you've made this season so much better with your videos. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I'm so happy. Do I have a theory on Fanny's parentage? I haven't given that much thought. I did when I first read the books and was kind of introduced to her, but I really haven't thought about it since then. That's something I'll have to think on and probably do a video about. She's one of my favorite characters from the most recent 2 books, definitely. She's someone who is going to be around for a while, and I really like her casting. So I'm excited about seeing how she portrays her. One thing that it's not imperative that it's the same in the show versus the books, but she's tongue-tied in the books, and obviously that is not being shown in the show, but it is a limitation that she has and very much shapes who she is, having a limitation like that. So I'm curious how that will kind of change her, because when you have a disability of sorts, like, it's very much a part of who you become and who you are and how you operate within the world. So hopefully that change won't impact her too much, but I also think that a lot of what I found endearing about her, and then Claire being able to fix her tongue tie, is just like part of her communication style and learning to trust them. So it's layered, but I'm excited for the Fanny storyline for sure. I was disappointed they didn't write in Rollo from the book. Which part, Lisa? I know that in this most recent episode he wasn't with Ian. A lot of people noticed that. I think that the show is kind of relying on all of us to remember that at one point in passing they pointed out that he's old now. But I do think in the preview when Ian is crying, that is likely when he finds Rollo. Do you do any other books, shows? Any plans for after the end of Outlander? I'll definitely do the prequel. I like other shows, but I would argue that I'm not as emotionally invested in them as I am to Outlander, just given that I read the books and it's like such a big story with so many, interwoven storylines, and I really appreciate that kind of world building. I do like House of the Dragon, which makes sense because I like world building. But I don't know. I think that right now I feel like my lane is very much Outlander, so I'm going to stay in my lane, I think. I missed what you said happens to Rollo. Rollo dies of old age, and he is at Ian and Rachel's bedside, and when they wake up one morning, he has passed. And it's very sad. Because of you, I got the first 3 books for Christmas. That's wonderful. Excellent. I hope you enjoy reading them. What was my favorite part of episode 15? I really liked the added Easter egg with this painting. I thought that was very clever. I personally think the highlight, though, was Sam's acting in this episode. It was one of the standout ones. Like, I had a very similar reaction to his acting in this episode as I did with the Wentworth one, where I just couldn't believe how he was able to go to a place that is so raw and convey it so well. So I would say that Sam's acting was definitely a highlight, or my favorite part, alongside with them adding this cool little Easter egg. I do hope they leave out Henri Christian part. Yeah, it's really sad. Very traumatizing. So maybe for the best. What happens? Where did that comment go? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep up. What happens with Bree's daughter running through the stones first? In the books, she doesn't actually go all the way through. She gets close and Jemmy runs after her, and both of their gemstones disintegrate, which is something that in the books, again, they've been writing this time traveler's guide, and they're writing down, her and Roger are writing down all of the things they know about time travel, and one of them is how gemstones are involved. And this whole scene is very different in the books because Lionel Menzies is there, and the whole motivation behind Bree and the kids leaving and going back in time is because they are in danger. And that is a tip-off from Frank and Frank's letter that the show did not include. And at the time that they are leaving, sorry, I'm plugging my charger into my computer. At the time that they're leaving, Rob Cameron and his men are pulling up to the stones, and so there's a lot more urgency behind the scene in the books, and Lionel Menzies is trying to help them to escape before Rob gets there. Remember, he is Rob's cousin, so he is siding with them over his own cousin, and he gives them gemstones from a ring that he's wearing so that they can go through. So the first time that Mandy and Jem run away, she thinks they go through, they don't. The gemstones disintegrate. She's worried that they're not going to have a way to travel, and Lionel is a big part in allowing them to go through. Am I excited for the new spin-off? Yes, I would say when they first announced it, I was a bit upset that they didn't do a Lord John series first before creating a whole new show that wasn't text that they could draw from. But I am getting more excited because one thing that I wished in the books that they had explored at some point was Claire's parents, because there's really not hardly anything written about them, and Diana has said she really had no interest in writing about them. So I am excited to see that and get a little more information about them. Thank you for the heart. If the last Outlander book and Reputation TV were released at the same time. I'm not a big Swiftie, but I know what you're talking about, and yes, that would be mind-blowing. The girl that was cast as Jane looks like Brianna. She does. I've also seen a lot of people saying that they would have preferred if she was cast as Brianna, but you do have to keep in mind that she's young now, and they cast Brianna years and years and years ago, so she would have been like an absolute child at that point. But she really does. And I also think that actress is wonderful. She's doing a great job as Jane. In the intro to this week's episode, was that Jamie in the painting, that young... Yes, so in this, obviously I can't show you... No, I can't zoom out. In the painting, let me see if I can change the effect here. I don't think I can. The painting has Jamie standing behind the cannon, and then over here, which, you know, obviously you can't see here, Claire is like tending to someone on the ground. So they're both in this painting that Frank is showing her. Your voice and the way you review is so soothing. Thank you. That's very kind. I've actually gotten that a few times, and every time I'm kind of shocked, so thank you. When did I first start reading Outlander? I started reading the books after the end of season 4 aired. And actually, one of my coworkers at work is the person who got me into the show. And I became so obsessed with the show that when I found out that there were books, I knew that I had to read the books. So I binge watched the whole show all the way up until when season 4 aired. And then I watched season 4 as the episodes dropped. And then once we were part of Outlander again, I read all of the books. And I've read them through probably, this will be my 4th time now, because I basically reread them every time a new season comes out so that everything's kind of front of mind for me. Did you watch Bridgerton? Of course. Of course I did. So Ashley asked who my favorite character is. I answered this a little earlier, but Lord John. Which Outlander book and which novella is your favorite? So my favorite Outlander book is actually the one that this season covered. Written in My Own Heart's Blood is definitely my favorite. I think it was one that there were so many things to do with the time travel and, you know, having Frank write the letter to Bree and how interconnected everything was that I just couldn't put the book down when I was reading it. My favorite novella, that's gonna probably be a tie between The Scottish Prisoner, well, a 3-way tie. The Scottish Prisoner, because it's all Jamie and Lord John, and I love that. A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows, because when I was reading Written in My Own Heart's Blood and Roger had the whole storyline with his father, I was just so eager to read the storyline about his parents, which is covered in A Leaf on the Wind of All Hallows. And then I also like The Space Between, which is Joni McKimmey and Michael Fraser and them going to France, which actually in season 7, they kind of touch on that when Joni and him leave. And in that novella, we have the return of a lot of time travel storylines. We see the Comte Saint Germain again. We see Master Raymond again. So I like those 3. Those are my favorites. The hardest book for me was The Fiery Cross, personally. I think that was a lot of people's. Much appreciate your sensitivity and interpretation. Thank you, Dory. I definitely try. I think, and I might be preaching to the choir here, but anytime you have a book as the source material, and then a show has to go and reinterpret that book, most of what you read in a book, first of all, like the picture you paint in your mind is going to be different than the one I paint in my mind. The people that you envision as these characters is going to be different. So you already have that challenge of trying to appease to everybody. But there's also things in the books that simply won't translate on screen. And I think everyone would do well to just remember that it's very hard to do a book justice, and that this show is one of the few that I think makes a very concerted effort to do so and is doing a good job of. And also, it's very hard to write a show, make a show, film a show, edit a show. Like, it's a very hard profession, and they do it so that we can enjoy it. And I just don't feel like anyone benefits from me nitpicking the crap out of it. I can appreciate it for what it is, and how much work goes into it. And same with the books. Currently on my second read through of Fiery Cross, and I'm riding that struggle bus hard. I feel for you. I agree. What book is this season covering? The first half of season 7 had plot from An Echo in the Bone, and current plot is Written in My Own Heart's Blood. What does Frank's letter say? Frank's letter is, well, I could go on about this for quite some time, but to summarize, the main difference of this scene in the show versus the books is that Bree actually doesn't get Roger's letter out of the desk in the books. She is sent his letter from Joe Abernathy, who is given the letter when Bree kind of asks him, when, you know, she tells Joe Abernathy, like, we're going back in time, essentially. And Joe is the person who kind of tends to all of her affairs when she leaves. And the person who's going to move into Lallybroch is removing furniture from the house. And they have to deconstruct the desk, and when they do that, they find the letter, and Joe mails the letter to Bree. So in the books, Bree finds only Frank's letter in the secret compartment of the desk, and it's basically him telling her that he knows that she's a time traveler. He has learned through his research that she is the center of the Fraser prophecy, and that people, if they find out that she is the focus of the prophecy and can time travel, that there will be a lot of dangerous people after her. And so he tells her essentially that her whole life he raised her so that she would be capable to survive, capable of surviving back in time if she were to have to go back to Jamie. That at the time he wrote the letter, she's 15 and they had just gone shooting together, and it makes him kind of spooked to think that one day people would be after her, and that he would do his best to try and neutralize any threats that might be trying to put her in danger. But if he's unable to, and she is reading that letter, then he likely has passed away, and that he would encourage her to go back in time to Jamie because Jamie will keep her safe. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but the gist of what's in Frank's letter. Teresa, good night. Let's see here. A Fugitive Green, that's a great one too. I hope you're enjoying it. Do you think there's more to Frank's death? I don't know. I really don't. I like to think no, but he's such an interesting character, and Diana's so calculated that I almost think there could be, and she'll write that in later. She also is planning on writing something about, like what he knows, because Frank knew a lot more than I think anyone realized. So I'm curious if there might be some insights there as to what he was up to behind the scenes that might have caused the accident. What does Rob Cameron want from her? Rob, he basically wants Jemmy because Jemmy knows where the French gold is. And he is like Galus, where he believes in that, prophecy, but he also selfishly wants the gold. It's very like convoluted, but he's basically a person like Galus that was part of the Scottish Nationalist Party. Same with Richardson. They were all kind of in the same group where they believe that a Scot should sit on the throne. But in the books at this point in time, he mainly wants Jemmy, and it's because Jemmy knows where the gold is. So he wants to go to America and find it. So that's it. And also in the books, he's attracted to Bree, and he tries to assault her when he goes to the house, and I'm really glad they didn't put that in. When will season 8 begin? I'm not sure, but if I had to guess, it would be 2026. Reading Bees for the 3rd time currently. Good for you, Barb. I need to reread it again because there's a lot of great storylines in there that I keep forgetting about. They all kind of blend together at a certain point. Watching you, I fell in love even more with Outlander. That's the highest praise I could get. I'm so glad. That's wonderful. Feels like they've really dismissed the Fraser prophecy in the show. Yes, I think largely because that's such a very complex storyline that if you were going to open up the door to that, then you have to give it enough airtime to make it feel satisfying to wrap it all up. So they might have just kind of chosen to skip it for that reason. I also think that if we're going to have the end of Outlander, most people got kind of mad when the show and the world expanded outside of Jamie and Claire's centralized story and included all these other characters. And the deeper into the books you go, the more that rings true. So I think if that was the general consensus from show watchers, they probably want to kind of keep the storyline contained to the core characters moving forward so that people are getting what they want, which is more Jamie and Claire. Let's see here. I love your nails. Thank you. Thank you so much. Frank's story is intriguing. I agree. Logan, what is the phrase or prophecy? Essentially, it's a prophecy that says the last of Lord Lovett's line will rule Scotland one day. And then there's like another part about, the 200-year-old baby that we hear Galus talking about. Both of those things, the criteria falls upon Bree. I think it would probably serve you well to go back and watch the video that I made about it, because I explain it in full detail. But it is very interesting. Uh-oh, why is my screen freezing? Sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. Do you think because Frank knew so much more, he had forgiveness for Claire in the end? Yes, I do. I think Frank's a very complicated but interesting character. He also is, you can sympathize with him a lot more in the books, I think. He basically was in love with a woman that he knew would leave him, like permanently leave him, and potentially his daughter too. So, and to a man that he never would get to meet and only read about through history and would see through history. I think Frank probably went through many stages of trying to grapple with that fact. He did a lot of shitty things, probably to cope. And then obviously his love for Bree kind of trumps everything else. So yeah, I think he had some forgiveness for her, certainly. But I think if Brianna wasn't as big of a part of the picture, it might likely be a very different situation between him and Claire. How did Joe Abernathy find out about the time travel? Claire told him when she came back. He's one of Claire's closest friends. So Claire told him, and he helped her make sure that Bree was taken care of when she goes back in time. And he obviously then knew that Brianna and Roger were both also time travelers, so he is doing the same for them when they leave. In the books, I think an interesting conversation Brianna has with herself is that she's like, how do I prep to go back and not know when I'll come back and return to my own time and be sure that there's a home to return to and all of my stuff is in order so that I can just restart my life again. It's a very complex thing to think about, and Joe is the one that kind of handles all of that for her. She also has a thought too about what if her children in 20 years time go back to the future without their parents. She wants Jemmy and Mandy and their third child that they will have to have a home to go back to, have everything in order. So definitely an interesting thought that she has when she's preparing to go back in time that obviously the show didn't cover, because in the show Bree doesn't go to America, doesn't see Joe, just a very different outcome there. These are all such great questions, everyone. Thank you. Does Richardson get surgery before or after he time travels? Before. The character has it done before so that he wouldn't be recognized. Also worth noting, too, that they probably are going to be removing a lot of Richardson's storyline, or at least condensing it, truncating it a little bit. But yeah, he gets it done before he goes back so that he's not recognized by anyone, especially since Brianna saw him in front of Lallybrock. It would be quite obvious if she sees him again. But yeah, interesting character, and I do think if she sees him again. But yeah, interesting character, and I do think I'm always curious when they make decisions that like clearly only a book reader would see or catch, and one of them is how they didn't make it very obvious that Callahan and Richardson were the same in the episode. That was one of those kind of like hidden things that they included. But they'll probably pay that off at some point. I was hoping when Bree and Roger were renovating Lallybroch that they would have found more heirlooms. Yeah, I think part of the challenge with the show is that the actual castle that is used as Lallybroch is completely empty inside. And I've been there when I went to Scotland, and it's beautiful, but there's no real set that they could have inside. It's just a big empty room. And so probably for budgetary reasons, they just kind of confined the scenes that they had in Lallybroch to like 1 or 2 rooms. And they probably had those scenes serve as other rooms in the show and then, like redressed them to be Lallybroch. But in the books, there's definitely more of an emphasis on them living there and like how that's such a prominent part of their day-to-day. So another change where reading the books, if you're interested, you would kind of get more of a payoff there. What happens to Jane in the book? I did a video on her talking about the full character profile. She is seen by someone who was close to Harkness and knows what she did, and she is taken by them and accused of murdering him, and she admits to it and is being held at a house. And in the books, it's in Savannah, Georgia. In the show, they have it still be at Philadelphia, just because they're like shortening all of the travel that happens in and around the storyline. And William and Jamie go to rescue her, but by the time they get there, she has taken her own life. So, very, very sad. Thank you, Justine. Wasn't Frank in the books way different than the show? Yes. Yes, he was. Did Frank ever try to go through the stones? Not that I know of, and he stood very close to them when he first starts looking for Claire, and he actually touches the rock, if you'll remember, in season 1. So I know that he's not a time traveler, but who's to say he wasn't touching that because he was attempting to go through. What's your thought on Frank dedicating his last book to Jamie in the books? I loved that storyline. I really, really hope we get it. And I mentioned this in one of my review videos that the book that Brianna picks up off the bookshelf is one of his books, and in that book he writes about the Battle of King's Mountain and Jamie's death in it. But then he also dedicates a book to Jamie in the books, and Jamie gets to read it, and it's so fascinating. So great storyline. Hi Tiffany, I've never done a live before, so welcome. What's my favorite book of the saga? I answered this earlier, but Written in My Own Heart's Blood is my favorite book. Let's see here. If Brian Richardson are at Lallybroch, how is he also in the same time with Jamie and Claire? I'm gonna butcher this, but you can be in 2 different times, but not at the same, like you couldn't travel to a time that you're existing in, if that makes sense. I'll have to come up with a clearer way to explain this, but basically, like, if Roger travels forward, he cannot go to a time that he's already in. So, like, I don't know how to explain this in a way that doesn't make me sound crazy, but you can be in 2 time periods at once. I'll just have to come up with a clearer way to explain it because I know it's been done before. Something that's a little more concise. Let me see here. Aren't the future and present timelines the same? Roger touched on that when they tried to find Jamie. Yes. I think the fact that Roger was so interested in Frank. When you say Ron, do you mean Roger? Oh wow, he gets to read it. Yes. Yes, Sarah. That's very interesting. Why is Written in My Own Heart's Blood? I think Written in My Own Heart's Blood is my favorite because it brings back a lot of characters from the past. So like Joe Abernathy, obviously Frank. I also think too it's one of the ones where we get a little bit more of the supernatural elements. Something again that the show's not touching on. There's a character that Roger and Buck meet when they are back in Scotland, named Hector McEwen, and he's also a time traveler, and he's also a healer like Claire. And in the books, there's more emphasis on their like healing powers and the blue aura and the blue light. And Hector is able to heal Roger's throat and Buck's heart with his healing powers. He also, when Brianna and the kids show up back in time, when they're running to go see Roger, Brianna sprains her ankle and Roger brings her to Hector, and Hector heals her ankle, and they can see him touching her skin and her skin glowing blue and his hand glowing blue. So I just think that this whole book has a lot more of that like supernatural element to it than before. I also I liked William being more prominent in this one, although he does spend a lot of time wandering around on missions, but we get to see him interact with Jamie in this book. I loved the Jane character and the introduction of Fanny, so there's a lot of things that I really liked about this one. Jamie reads how he dies. How does he die? He dies in a battle, and again, that goes back to the supernatural element. Claire is able to save him with her healing powers. There's more to it than that, but that's the simple answer. What has been my favorite change that the show made from the books this season? I do think there's too many for me to give you a simple answer to that, but I would say that the way that they've truncated a lot of storylines and presented it in a way that makes sense is impressive to me, because they've kind of taken bits and pieces of all of these side quests and side adventures that all these characters go on, and like wrap them up in a very neat, concise way that makes sense. Like if they didn't make sense, I wouldn't be as happy about it. But for example, when young Ian and Lord John go back and save William, it plays out so differently in the books. It happens so much later in the books. The whole way that John goes about it is so different in the books. And so the way that they kind of just like shrunk that storyline down, but also had it happen in a way that would make sense and is logical and was satisfying to watch. I'm happy with those changes. I obviously wish that they had time to kind of flesh things out longer, and it wasn't so rushed, but I am happy with how they've reworked a lot of scenes and still kept it fairly true to what happens in the story, but also very clear. Didn't Roger go to a timeline he was already in once? Am I remembering wrong? I don't believe so, but I could be wrong. Roger interacts with obviously Brian Fraser, and they don't know in the books a lot about how the time travel works, so Roger's very nervous basically, like that they're gonna screw things up, and Claire has been in at times too. But one thing that they didn't include in the show is that Roger meets Blackjack Randall, and he knows obviously that Jamie is about to come in the time that he's in, that Jamie would be coming home from France, and that everything that's going to happen with Blackjack, with Jamie, and with Jenny Murray is awful and horrible, and it's dangerous for him to think that he would be around because he doesn't think he'd have the composure to not intervene. And he knows that as horrific as it is, Jamie has to have that happen to him, because if it doesn't, then he never meets Claire. So it's one of those things where, as all of the time travelers are kind of going in and out of history like that, they don't know how their presence is actually affecting their life, the future, the current timeline that they're in. Like there's a lot of question marks around it. And again, that's why I like the book. Because it is than the show has been. Will we ever see Fergus and Marcelly again? Yes, they did film for season 8, so we will see them again. I don't know how much they're gonna include from their storyline from this season, because again, they'd be kind of like pulling the plot and inserting it somewhere else, so I don't know if it would make sense, but yes, they did film for season 8. If you're comfortable answering, how would you like to see the books end? Oof. With them happy. I just want them to have a win. I'm very curious because, again, there's so much to this like time loop that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. You know, I can say how I'd like a satisfying ending for Jamie and Claire, but what happens to them affects everyone around them. So it's hard for me to just say, like, I want it to end this way, because you have to take into consideration what that would do to everyone in their little universe. I'll be very curious if Bree and Roger or any of their children ever go back to the future. I think there's a world in which I'd be curious about that. But ultimately, I just want Jamie and Claire to have, whatever their ending may be, them be happy and not have it be like this big, traumatic, horrible thing. I just want them both to, like, similar to The Notebook, like, I just want them to lay in a bed together and go peacefully at the same time. Okay, I think Bree finds Frank's letter in his book. She finds it in the desk. At least when I read it, it was in the secret compartment in the desk. It was taped in there with Scotch tape. Let's see. So Claire actually does have supernatural healing powers. Yes. Do I think they'll put them in the show? I sure hope so. They mentioned it in season 2, obviously, with Master Raymond, but then they really haven't touched upon it a lot since then. But I would really like if they did, because I think it's very interesting. Shan MC says, I feel like they're not going to do the Fraser prophecy, just the Jacobite Gold. Thoughts? Yes, I agree. I think that that's the easiest, simplest storyline for them to show us in the show, and one that can be shortened significantly. The Fraser prophecy one there's a lot to it, and it would take multiple episodes to flesh it out fully, so I think the Jacobite Gold route is the one they chose because it's the simpler of the two. Could I do a video one day reviewing each book and your opinion on them? Sure. That would be fun. I could certainly do that. Roger meets Blackjack Randall. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Can we do a book club? Yeah. Sure. Someone set that up and include me. I would love that. Is season 8 going to be the same book we are in now? I don't know how much season 8 is going to pull from Go and Tell the Bees That I'm Gone, which is book 9. I think I read somewhere that they aren't going to follow that exactly because this is the season where they have to wrap everything up. So they're kind of taking liberties with the storyline and changing a lot. So I think there's probably obviously going to be some elements of the end of Written in My Own Heart's Blood and Go and Tell the Bees That I'm Gone. And then I think the show's going to kind of go rogue with how they choose to end it. Let's see here. Does William ever find out that Claire and Bree are time travelers? I believe so. But I think they withhold that information from him. He's not around for a lot. Like, he kind of comes in and out of their, he doesn't ever like stay with them. He's off doing his own thing quite often. So the conversations that they have are significant in that, you know, they're few and far between. I don't think he knows at this point in the books, though, by design. Let's see. We know there won't be a Scottish queen, so the Fraser prophecy doesn't really make sense. Yes, but in this fictional world, I think Diana was just having a little bit of fun with that, surely. I don't think Bree took the bag that had Frank's book in it because Mandy ran to the stone. She did drop the bag. Someone did point that out. So I'm curious if in the beginning of the finale we see that they didn't actually go through initially. I'm curious how that will go. I really wanted to see Roger meet Blackjack. Me too. I think Tobias is a wonderful actor. I would have loved if he was back. Discord could be a good place to run a virtual book club, possibly. I don't have one of those, but I'd certainly look into it. Who's your favorite character? I've answered this already. Lord John Grey is my favorite character. Let's see. In the books, Jem stops Mandy and pulls her back, and they all go back together. I think they will do that. Yes, I agree. I hope they do that. I do hope that that's what they choose to do. The actor playing William is phenomenal. Yes, he is. I really, really have been so impressed with Charles Vanderbart. I will say, I think that the casting department for this show is very good. I've been really happy with Buck. I think the actor who's playing Buck is wonderful. Even just the kind of like one-off characters that they have, everyone does a really great job. I think that that's definitely a strength of the show. You are the first person after each show I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you. That's very high praise. Thank you. I appreciate that. I know sometimes people get a little peeved that I don't have the videos like earlier in the day, so I appreciate you guys waiting. These literally take me hours to put together because I don't want to misremember something or put the wrong information out there. So I very much appreciate everyone's comments and waiting for me to put them out into the world and everyone's interactions with them. It's been very fun for me. I don't have a lot of people in my life to talk to about this, but it's something that I've always, really loved since I started watching the show and reading the books. So I'm happy that I've kind of found my people on here. It's nice. My husband thought I was crazy when I said Lord John Grey was one of my favorites, but he's not read the books. I think Lord John is in some way everyone's favorite, especially if you've read the books. Oh, thank you, Mary. I appreciate that. Shan, yes, I did love Daisy Jones and the Six so much. I think that show was wonderful, and I listened to the music from it quite often. I'm happy I was your person for both. Let's see here. Thank you, Tiffany. Someone commented back on something about the wigs being bad in season 4 through season 6, and they're better in season 7. I have to agree. I don't know if that was like, something was going on and there was a change made in the wigs department. Also, there was a lot of conversation in the comments about Claire's wig, Jamie's wig being like more blonde than red. That's again one of those things, like I understand obviously the importance of especially Claire's wig turning more gray because you'll remember in season 4 she is told this kind of prophecy about her that she won't come into her full power until her hair is white, and so her hair graying over time is also in the books a way to kind of gauge how close she is to reaching her full power. And so in the show, when she has a wig that looks more gray and then other times it looks less gray, like obviously that's something continuity wise that I notice, but I'm also like, it doesn't ruin her acting for me in any way. Same with Jamie's hair being more blonde than red. Like I've heard from many people that redheads kind of gray that way, like they turn more blonde, and it's just like such a small detail that like personally it doesn't ruin the story for me. What did I find end up being distracting is when like the wig line is just like bad. Like that takes me out of the story. Let's see. The Outlander community here is great. So far I've been really, really happy that people are so kind and nice and interested in what I'm interested in talking about and willing to listen to me. So it's been great. Stacy, your 2025 goal is to read Where'd your comment go? All the books. Is this achievable? Yeah, I listened to all of them. Gosh, how long did it take me? Again, I did the audiobooks, and I'm also a little cuckoo. I can do things while listening to it and still retain it, which I know a lot of people cannot. So I'm not the norm. I'm definitely not the norm. But I think I finished all of them within 4 months, probably, when I did the audiobooks. But that was, again, like every day at work. I don't think that's normal. But if you are dedicated to it, I think it's definitely an achievable goal and a very good one for the year. Yes, a lot of people are confirming my suspicions about redheads turning blonde. Who does William marry in the books? He's not married in the books. Not yet, anyway. Even the stills from season 8, her wig doesn't look gray enough. Yeah, I think, again, like, that's another thing where potentially they're just kind of, like, omitting the whole coming into her full power when her hair is fully gray part. Because, again, too, like, not that this is something that I think they necessarily need to take into consideration, but Sam and Katrina do not look the age that their characters should be. So, it's fair. Squirrel bangs from season 4. That was an example when I was like, you're taking me right out of the story. I'm so distracted by his hair. I binged the Outlander audiobooks during COVID when I was home with my toddler. Rachel, that was the perfect time for you to do it. I wish I could have done it then. I did it when I was at work and it consumed my life. How's the voice acting for the audiobooks? This is something that I find is kind of divisive. Some people really love Davina Porter, and some people really can't stand her. I think it's one of those very personal things. Like, I find she talks super slow, so I have to speed up her voice because I need it to be quicker. You know, she pauses, but that's just how every audiobook is made also. They do that on purpose. But she has a very distinct voice for Claire, and then she has a very, very Scottish accent for Jamie. So I like that throughout all of the books they have consistent voices that we hear, and she does very good voices for all the other characters going on in the books. But I think for some people, I don't know if it's just like her tone or her cadence or her delivery, it's not for them. So it's one of those where I think you need to just try it out, see if you like her. But I appreciate how much effort she puts into distinguishing all of the characters and giving them a consistent voice throughout all of the audiobooks. I think that's very hard to do, and she does a very good job. Are you going to be on Instagram if this app goes away? I've thought about it. I'm not like the biggest fan of Instagram personally. I also think too, like, there's a lot of time constraints on videos. So like on TikTok, I have to say all of my thoughts in 10 minutes. And so it ends up breaking up my analysis into multiple videos. So right now I started a YouTube channel and I'm copying over all of my videos from TikTok so that there's copies of them all over there. And then I think for Blood of My Blood and also the new season, if I'm on YouTube, then I can talk for as long as I want and potentially use that forum as more of a podcast format as well. So that's my game plan for now. I know that for ease of use, Instagram is great for everybody, but for me, it's not particularly my favorite for a few reasons. Let's see here. Anna says her voice is hard for me. I'm trying to push through it. That's fair. I mean, like I said, some people really, really can't stand it. So to each their own, that's totally fair. I've not finished books before because I didn't like how the person was narrating them, so I totally get it. How old are they supposed to be now on the show? Yeah, Claire's in her 60s. Jamie is around 60-ish, yes. I could find you the actual ages, but off the top of my head, that sounds accurate. Let's see. Ooh. Thank you to everyone who's like replying to people in the comments. I appreciate it. How do I find you on YouTube? I put a link to it in my TikTok bio if you want to go through that route. That's probably the easiest. It is all Davina Porter for the novellas as well. She does the novellas too. Yep. She did not pass away. She just retired. Yes, someone's commenting that Davina said she would come out of retirement to do book 10. I did see that too, which is great. I think it would be very hard for someone to walk into that and be able to tell the story like her when she knows the characters so well. My YouTube channel name is the same as this one here, and it's K period Let's Talk. No, they're definitely not 80 years old. Thank you, what is it, MJust312. I appreciate you watching all of my posts and interacting with them. It's been very fun. Someone says, thank God I'm doing a YouTube so I don't lose you. I took a total hiatus after the first half of season 7 because, like I said, these videos take so long for me to make, and I had just gone full-time with my company, so it was just like I can't do all of it at one time. But I was very excited to get back into it when 7B started airing, and people were messaging me while I was away being like, are you gonna come back? And I always plan to, but I didn't think I would not post it at all in between the break. Hopefully I won't disappear on you guys again. I would really love to start from the beginning and review from season 1 forward and kind of do a deep dive that way, because I think a lot of people appreciate, if you're not a book reader, the comparison between the two, but I also think too it's hopefully going to get more people interested in the show and discovering the show, which I think would be wonderful. Someone asked about a TikTok ban. Yeah, in America. How is Fraser's Ridge when they go back? Oh, that would be a long-winded answer. There's a lot. I really don't know how they're going to handle the return to Fraser's Ridge. Like, how many people they're going to introduce again, who is still there. Obviously, I know, like, Lizzie will be there. But there's so much that's changed. Like, the fact that Jenny isn't with them and returning with them changes a lot. So it's hard to say if they're going to, you know, rework that. I have to know what your Jamie Ghost theory is. I don't think I've ever heard it. That's because I haven't shared it on here. Also, hi, Jen. Yeah, Libby, I haven't shared my theory about Jamie's ghost on here. I have one. I think that's one of those things where, like, I have it all in my head and I really just need to, like, write it down and make sure it makes sense before I share it with the world, but I'll definitely do a video on that. There's zero reason why they couldn't have kept Jenny unless the actress was not available. Yeah, and they changed the actress, so maybe they were, I don't know, thinking maybe it would be better if she only had like a small presence and then they could just write her off. But I don't find that swapping the actress was like a huge problem for me. I'd rather her be part of the plot because she's actually very important in a lot of moments. So yeah, I hope she shows back up again. The order of the books should be read or listened to. I listened to them first and then I read them. I think it's less daunting if you're listening to them instead of looking at how thick the book is. Laura, yes, the actors who play Marcelly and Fergus filmed for season 8, so they will be back, which is good because I miss them. Do I have a video listing the orders? Yes, I do. If you go down on my profile, the 2 videos that I've made about the books and the novellas, the background behind my face is all the book covers. Those are the 2 videos I've made talking about the books. Jen says there's so much variance between the show and the book at this point. Yes. Yes, there is. I said at the beginning of my review video for this most recent episode 15 that at this point they're really 2 different stories. They've been for a while, but now they really are. Start with season 1 during Outlander. Yeah, I'd love to. Like I said, it's just time consuming, so I need to kind of make sure that I'm able to do that in a way that's consistent for everyone, but also, you know, not taking over my life. Was that the last episode? No, the one that we just watched was the penultimate, so second to last. The finale will be in 2 weeks. Someone's asking, did I miss something? What happens to Henri Christian? Ooh. Do I want to explain this in full? Guys, so I will have to log off here shortly, but in the books, Fergus and Marcelly and the kids are in Philadelphia. They have a print shop there, and after Claire is recovering from her gunshot wound, they stay with them for a time, and we see a lot more of them, I should say, in the books. They've kind of been involved in this storyline in various different ways. And the long and short of it is that the house, the print shop, is set on fire, and Henri Christian ends up dying in that fire, and Germaine tries to save him and is unable to, and there's just a lot of repercussions for that. It's very traumatic. Marcelly is never the same. It's really, really sad. And Claire wakes up because she can smell fire, and yeah, the whole thing's really, really sad. Does everyone eventually get back to Fraser's Ridge together? Yes, Logan, they do. Which is, I hope, how they kind of end the finale. We'll see, though. That would be speeding things up quite a bit. Jen says, I felt like this episode sent me back to season 1. The vibes and performances were unmatched. I agree. It definitely was reminiscent of the kind of drama and acting that we got in season 1, for sure. Someone says, can you briefly explain Go and Tell the Bees that I'm gone? That would be impossible. That's also, truthfully, I have not read that one in a long time, so I wouldn't want to misspeak. I've been rereading Echo in the Bone through Written in My Own Heart's Blood most recently, and it's been a while since I read Go and Tell the Bees that I'm gone, so I couldn't confidently recap it for you right now anyway, because in my brain a lot of what happens in that book is kind of like combined with Written in My Own Heart's Blood, and I know that's not true, but I will be rereading it, obviously, so I can certainly talk on that once I'm refreshed with the plot. Do you think Claire was really from 1918 or was really born in the 1700s and traveled? I haven't really thought about that, but I've never had a thought that she wasn't from 1918 personally. But never say never. That would be interesting if she was. Does everything end in season 8, or is that to be determined? Sorry if you answered already. No, Raylan, I didn't answer this. Well, I did kind of. Yes, the show is going to wrap up with season 8, but I think that the actors I know have said that they would be open to doing a movie similar to Downton Abbey, if that opportunity presented itself. So I think they're going to try and wrap it up in a way that might leave it open-ended enough that they could do movies in the future, which I think would be wise, because we're going to get book 10. So, Bree's third kid is born in the future or when? No, she's pregnant when they are back in Jamie and Claire's timeline. So back in the past. Wow, a movie. Don't take my word for it. I don't know if that will actually happen, but I think that that's obviously a consideration that has been talked about. Why does Claire travel back in time to that particular time period? This, I would like to think, has a simple answer, but it doesn't. What I can say is that in Bree and Roger's Time Traveler's Guide that they're writing for the kids, they know that it's roughly 200 years, give or take, that most people travel back in time to. The interesting part that, again, is explored more in the books is that some time travelers like Mandy, like Claire, Jemmy, have certain amplified like powers that they have too. So Claire has the healing power. Jemmy and Mandy, they can sense each other's locations. In the books, before they go back through the stones to find Roger and they're in Boston with Joe Abernathy, Brianna and Joe test how far Jem and Mandy can be apart from one another before they can't feel each other anymore, and Mandy can feel him up to 4 miles away. So there is also a notion in the books that if you think of someone, the stones can pull you to that person, like we saw with Roger going back for Jeremiah, his father. Right now, when Bree and the kids are going back, they're having Mandy and Jem feel Roger and pull them to him in that way. So I like to think that Claire was being pulled to Jamie in some way. I think that that's probably plausible. And to me, that makes the most sense. Let's see. Oh, people think that the car accident was Claire's parents time traveling. That would be interesting. Again, like Diana really, she has openly said that she doesn't really find Claire's parents interesting at all. So she hasn't written about them. So that's very open-ended. And I'm excited to see what the show does with them, because they're really blank slates at this point. Graceless Who says, I'm on reread of Voyager and I'm listening to Galis. She acts like hasn't gone back again. Galis never goes back again. She stays in the past. She tries to, and Claire prevents that from happening. So Galis only time travels once, and it's backwards, and she stays there, and that's where she dies. H.M. Lasso says, she was for sure. I think there's a connection to Claire with the French girl Jamie couldn't save. I do too. Definitely. All right, you guys, I'm on 2%, so I'm going to end the live. Thank you all so much for joining me. This was so fun. We will do it again. I'm going to have more videos throughout the week. So comment on any of my videos if you want to see something in particular. And thank you all. Thank you. I can see everyone saying thank you. Thank you. I was nervous about doing these, but this was really fun. And I appreciate everybody watching and asking such great questions. And we will do it again. All right, everyone. Have a good night.